welcome everybody to Google Upgraded. This is what's new, and it's in particular, this is as a result of Education Plus, which was rolled out to staff and students across the university last week. A quick kind of what was it? We had Education Fundamentals beforehand. It's basically a license that determines what sort of features we get in Google. We have now been upgraded to Education Plus. So whilst most things don't look any different, you will actually have a whole load of new features available, from building blocks, mail merges, Gmail layouts, e-signatures, document approvals, stuff we're going to blitz through in what we're calling kind of a showcase session. We're going to go through and demo it as much as possible, but it's not necessarily going to be for you to follow along and learn at this point. It's going to be to kind of whet your appetite, let you have a look at the recording, and then follow up with the resources. Okay. And to start with, I'm going to let John share his screen and kick us off.
So the first feature we're going to look at is Gmail layouts. Now, this is an example of a Gmail, an email using Gmail layouts that I've sent to myself. And we can see that this allows us to create some branded content and allows us to kind of change a bit visually how our content will be. It's a bit like the templates feature, but kind of on steroids. There's a bit more we can do with it. So to show you how to set up a Gmail layout for the first time, we're going to go to Compose, and you'll start to see some new features in Gmail and Docs and so on. Anything kind of with a blue new button on it will probably be an Education Plus feature. You may just need to refresh if it's not there immediately. So I'm going to go down to my bottom bar here and select a layout, and this is going to bring up the layouts pane. Now I've got some preset default layouts I can choose and I can alter around. And these have kind of got suggestions on how to lay out your content in a newsletter style, an announcement style, and so on. But also under the My Layouts tab is where I can find layouts that I'm actually collaborating on with other people. So here is a layout I actually shared with myself, so we can share layouts amongst our team, or we can create something from scratch, which is what I'm going to do to begin with. So I'll click on New Layout, and our layout editor is very familiar if you've ever used Google Sites. It's basically a pared down version of the Google Sites editor, where we can insert content such as text, we can move things around, we can insert buttons, images, we can use content blocks to help kind of design our content. There's all sorts of insert features there. There's also the Themes tab here where we can choose how it looks. It's a Google Workspace type product, so we've got version history there, which is very handy if we want to make changes and revert back to them. We can edit it in full screen. We can preview how it will look as an actual email on different devices, just as we can in Google Sites, and we can share with others. So I'm going to go back to my layout that I already created earlier, my Blue Peter version. And once I've got this layout, as I said, we can share with other people, but if I'm happy with the content within it, I can insert this into my email to send out to people. And I can check how it will look. The one thing that is worth noting here is if I want to then go and change some text about this, slightly annoyingly, I can't do it directly in here like I can a template. I have to go back into my edit function here and change the text within here. But I can, of course, make copies as well if I so wish. But yeah, really useful for comms, for adding university branded content there, colors and so on. Now you might want to combine that with another feature that we're going to look at next, which is Gmail mail merge. And if you've ever come to our YAM training, which is yet another mail merge, this is a new feature that lives directly within Gmail for us to send out personalized emails that we can have tags for. So I'm in my sent folder here, and here's an example of one I sent to myself. I can use @tags to personalize my email. So dear @first name, this is a reminder that your appointment is at appointment time. And I can do that in conjunction with a data sheet to end up with something that looks a little bit more like this, where it's going to pull out the information from my data sheet to personalize that email so that when I send this mail merge campaign, each user gets a unique copy of that email with the content that's tagged up replaced with relevant content. So the best practice for this is to actually start with the data sheet. And I've got a very simple example here to begin with. And if you're going to do this, you need to make sure that your content is all on the first tab of your Google Sheets. So I've got some basic contact information here in terms of first name, surname, email, and so on. And you will absolutely need to have first name and surname as a bare minimum to start this mail merge process. So I've got my nice data sheet here. To begin my mail merge process, I go up to Compose. And now beside the CC and BCC fields, you'll see I've got this little person icon here to start a mail merge. And you can do a basic version with some simple tags without a spreadsheet, but it's best practice to use a spreadsheet so you can really make sure that you're getting the right content there. Then I'm going to go add from a spreadsheet. I find my data sheet here, which is handily the first item available here. And I insert that, and it gives me some options for where is my email. It's in the column called @email. That's what I put in my header row. Where's the first name? Logically, first name. Where's the last name? I've called it surname. But you select those two fields. So that's where as I say, you absolutely need to have first name and surname in that data sheet for this to work. Okay, it's pulled through then all my contacts from that data sheet here in the preview. And I'm going to hit finish. And then I can start writing my email with these tags. So I'm going to put hi at, and I can choose which content I'm going to tag up here. So first name, your appointment is at appointment time. And of course, that could be any kind of other content there. The one thing that I will say is that personalized links don't work yet. As in, if I had some personalized hyperlinks in another column here, they don't work yet. They would be converted to text at the moment. This is quite a new feature. You would have to put those links in this email draft. If you want to do personalized email links, that's where you would use yet another mail merge instead. Your appointment is at appointment time. Let's just keep it as that. Kind regards. Okay. And it gives me this unsubscribe link by default. Now, I'm not going to go through all the ways that unsubscribe works at the moment. I would say that if you're going to use this tool, have a little look at Google's guidance on the Learn More option here. There's a very specific section as to how unsubscribe works up here, and all sorts of other things to walk you through its features. But just giving that warning that I'm using Gmail Mail Merge, and the unsubscribe link won't work for people if we're sending this internally. It's only externals that will work for. But nice and simple at the moment. I'm going to give this a title as well, Mail Merge Test. Hit continue. And then it gives me a warning about helping fighting junk emails. You can choose to never show that again. And I've got the option at this point to send a preview to myself. So if you're a little bit nervous, if you're sending this out to hundreds of people, you can hit send preview just to make sure everything's working okay first. You're not mistyped something. You're not calling someone by their email in the first line. Then we can hit send all, and it's going to send those pretty quickly. Then when you go to your sent folder, you'll be able to see these coming through. I found that initially when you do it, it sort of looks a little bit like this, and it's got dear at first name and at appointment time, but don't panic. When it actually comes through, if I bring up my example from earlier, this is one I sent to myself earlier. It won't have any of that gubbins saying it's been sent by mail merge. It will just look like a nice personalized email. So here, my content has been replaced with those, whatever was in those tags. So I've got dear John, this reminder, your appointment is at, and whatever I put in that appointment column. So again, you can combine that with Gmail layouts to really create nice personalized email campaigns, and personalized newsletters, and so on. Okay. Right, on to Google Slides. I will mention as well at this point, if you are looking to do mail merge campaigns and things like that, yet another mail merge is a slightly more powerful tool. And we are going to be running training on both these tools. So we'll dig into this more in depth in that specific training session, but do have a little look at our skills guide on YAM if you are looking to send mail merge campaigns and have not done so before. Right, on to Google Slides then. So one of the key features we've got now in Google Slides is the ability to create and record slideshow recordings, video versions of your slideshows. This is the equivalent of in PowerPoint, we've got the record tab where we can record our presentations. Now, there is a limitation on it at the moment, up to 30 minutes worth of recording. So when I go to record this slideshow here, it might freak out a little bit because I'm already using my camera here. In fact, let's slide this to the right. Hey, look, there's my other camera. This has got a limit on it of 30 minutes. But you could record this, you can re-record it. If you're one of those people that don't like to do recordings in one big take, this is really useful because you can hit record. And then when you've recorded a bit of your presentation, let's see how we go. In fact, I'm not going to do that now. I think it's going to mess up if I try and do it with Zoom. But it will give you an option to re-record. So you can re-record bits at a time, which is really nice rather than trying to do that perfect one take recording, which is always quite elusive to do. We've got options to have our camera off or on. So if you just want to do an audio narration version of these slides, you can. You can blur your background here and so on. It's a nice, very simple to use recorder, essentially. And once you have done all those recordings, you can store them in your Google Drive and export them. And as I say, if you've got a session that is actually going to be more like an hour's worth of recording or 2 hours worth, you can record it in sort of 30-minute chunks and then combine using this with another brand new feature we've got, which is called Google Vids. And this is our new, very simple to use video editor that works directly with Google. So this is kind of, if you've ever used Windows Movie Maker way back in the day, this is very similar to that in that it's a sort of a passed down version of a full-scale video editor. So if you ever use things like Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve that are particularly kind of scary because they're very feature heavy, this is a really nice, simple video editor. So this one has got the ability to add text. So I've got 2 different recordings from slides here. I can trim them down. I can add some text elements to it. I can add new scenes. I could also do some cutting. So if I want to cut my video in half here, I can go up to scene and split the scene at the playhead. So we can do really nice and easy clip editing here. We can upload things from our Google Drive. We've got some stock and web videos and photos you can add here. You can add your slides recording. You can add scripts. So if you want to do some sort of teleprompter work, you can add a script here and have it auto scroll while you are talking through your video. It is just a really nice, simple to use video editor. Now, if you look at this online, you may see mentions of kind of features around AI. We don't have that in our package because we've not got the suitable Gemini license that you need for that. But again, it is there to use as that simple video editor. We have a video editing practical guide, and we're going to be looking to do more training on using this in video editing. In fact, I believe there is a video editing workshop coming up very soon. So look out for more content and training on that there. But as Phil said, get in touch with us if you have any questions. We've also got Google Meet. We can't really show too much of Google Meet on this call for obvious reasons. Very difficult to demonstrate that while we are on a Zoom call and using our cameras. But there are some new features of Google Meet that sort of bring it a bit closer in line with Zoom. So previously, you could only have video meetings up to 100 participants. Now, on your staff or student accounts, not on your non-personal accounts, you can have video meetings with up to 1,000 participants. You can have breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A. You can record meetings now and have those recordings saved in Drive. And then once they're saved in Drive, obviously very easy to send out via your sharing permissions. You can share with people as a viewer. You can track your attendance. You can have closed captioning. A very useful feature as well is the transcription software that's now in Google Meet, which will transcribe speech into a Google Doc should you need to work with transcriptions. And you can schedule meetings in advance and so on. So this is all on our IT services tools page. We will send out details of this in our follow-up email, so you can look at the relevant support articles for each of these features if you are someone that is going to be looking to use Google Meet. Lastly, from me, we'll look at a couple of Docs features. So if you've never used Smart Chips before, Smart Chips are these kind of dynamic elements where we can add tags for people in, we can add interactive calendars, maps, and so on. And basically, Google Education Plus has introduced a couple of new ones that we want to focus on. We're not going to show every single one or every single new building block, but there are a couple of cool ones. So one is the voting smart chip. If you're looking to gather quick opinions from people on a collaborative document or to send this out to students or otherwise, you can have this new voting chip where people can vote on different ideas or different, things in your document. So to do that, all we need to do is go to Insert, Smart Chips, and then we've got the Vote Smart Chip is our new one. We've got 3 default emojis here we could use, but you could customize your voting chip however you want with any other kind of emoji here. So we'll throw in this smiley face here. We can have multiple of them hanging underneath here, side by side. We can copy and paste them like so and change the emoji before someone votes. So we could run little polls like that if we want to. Really nice, quick feature. Another one we've got is the timer chip that can be useful for task-based exercises or even for a timer for yourself. If you're saying, I'm only going to spend 5 minutes on this next thing, perhaps you want that in your document. So we've got an example here where we've got a question asking people, perhaps in one of our exercises, to spend 5 minutes writing their thoughts on a certain topic. To insert a timer, all we need to do again is go to Insert, Smart Chips, and Timer. And we can choose how long this timer will be for. So I could type in more than 5 minutes here if I want. And when people are ready to start the timer, they just hit play and it counts down and we can reset it. I'm not sure what happens when the timer runs out. I've not got that far yet. Something could explode somewhere. Who knows? We'll find out when someone actually adds it and lets it count all the way down. But yeah, nice little one for exercises. And again, I mentioned that we have lots of different custom building blocks. If you've never used a building block before, essentially it is some sort of template content. So it could be for an email draft or some meeting notes or code block. I know we've got some people around at the university already using code blocks, task trackers, and so on. So I'd encourage you to have a little look at those in your own time if you've never used them before. But one that is really useful to try out is a custom building block. We often get requests of how to use templates, and this is kind of a new way that you could use templates. So let's say I've got a bit of text that I use frequently in my documents, or even an entire layout of a document that I use all the time, perhaps to fill in a form. What I can do is turn that into a custom building block that I can then easily recall into any document. So for example, I've got my email signature here. Let's say I get sick of copying and pasting that however many times or having to write it out from scratch. I could turn it into a custom building block. So what I'm going to do is go to Insert, Building Blocks, and Custom Building Block. And I'm going to go to New Custom Building Block. It says select content you'd like to save. I'm going to save just this bit for now. Hit save. Give it a name. So let's call it signature. And then once that's saved, it actually saves into my Google Drive and it gives me the bit of advice here. So you can, let it walk you through it. But to insert this, all we need to do is hit the app menu and then type in whatever our building block is that we've called it. And again, if we hit open save block, we can see them all in Google Drive. So now I've got that saved as a custom building block. Let's say I'm at the end of my document and I want to insert my signature. All I need to do is hit add signature. And there it is. That's my custom building block there. Inserted. And you can imagine that we can do that for all sorts of content. So if you've got lots of template content, it's a really nice way of inserting that wholesale. And again, if I go to signature there, you'll see if I need to make any edits to that, I've got the option to edit it. It basically stores it as a separate Google Doc in your Google Drive, should you need to make any alterations to that or share it out with other people. So that is a run through some quick features from me. I am going to stop there and hand over to Phil.
Okay. Conditional notifications in Google Sheets. A conditional notification is somewhere where you can create a rule that sends an email when a certain criteria is met. So for instance, somebody might change a value in a column or a specific range, and you want an email alert when that happens. Okay, so here is a Google Sheet, and this is just a normal table in a Google Sheet, just with a little bit of formatting and some drop down. So this is no different to a standard Google Sheet that you would make at this point in time. What I'd like to do is I'd like to add conditional notifications to this column, status, so that if somebody changes to something in progress, for instance, then it's going to send me an email. So the easiest way to get started with this is to click somewhere in the column that you want. Just makes it a bit quicker when we're adding this. We access this from Tools and Conditional Notifications. Now we're going to get this sidebar open over here on the right-hand side. A quick pointer to start with here is the emails aren't necessarily immediate, which is useful. It's not useful for a live demo, so I've already got a pre-prepared email for this, but just be aware that there's a little bit of a delay for it. So I'm just going to delete that previous one that I had up there. And so what you've got then is you've got the green Add Rule button. And kind of a little bit of scrolling up and down here, but if I go up to the top, I've got the ability to insert the name or the condition that I'm creating here. So you insert something useful. Obviously, if you've got multiple conditions, you want to make sure you know the differences between them. By default, it's if a cell value changes. So I haven't got the option to change this. It's just telling me, but it's blocked out there. I mentioned clicking in the column that you want prior to opening this, just so it's already selected, but obviously you've got all of the columns in there, but you can also do a customized range. So you can be quite specific with this, which is quite nice. So what you need to do is go to Add Condition. And what it's saying is when we meet a condition. So we've got nothing in there at the moment. And we've got all the options that you'll be familiar with if you've ever done like conditional formatting in Google Sheets. So what we want in this example is text is exactly. So I want to be very specific with this. So I select that, and then I'm going to type in progress. I'm using a drop down to define what's typed in there, so I know I can be quite prescriptive with this. Obviously, if I let somebody type it in manually, they could always type it in slightly different or make an error or something like that. So just consider where you're using this. So type in progress, I want my column G. You can add more conditions if you wish, but I'm just going to keep it as the one. It automatically is set to send a notification. There's no other options in there. There might be in future. And I can add up to 10 email recipients. So I'm just going to add one of my other test accounts in here, like so. It's critical to note at this point, that account must have some level of access to this Google Sheet overall. At the moment for my testing, it doesn't prompt you to say said person doesn't have an access. What they'll get is an email with a link to it, and then they just won't be able to open up the Google Sheet, which is a bit weird. Hopefully that feature comes at some point, like it does with other bits, but enter your email addresses and then click save like so. This is kind of now what's happening here. We can see the rules, a little bit of a box here to show us and a little briefing about it. You can turn it on and off. I can go in and edit it. I can remove it, so on and so forth. So all somebody would do is basically change that value there, carry on working in the sheet. And as it mentions, it can be kind of up to 30 minutes. Let's have a look at what the email appears. It looks a little bit like this. So it tells me that change has happened. My spreadsheet name is called One Conditional Notifications. There's a link to the sheet and then a screenshot of what's being changed in here, who by, a direct link to that cell reference, what the value was before, what it was afterwards, etc. The bottom of the email looks a little bit weird at this point in time in terms of coming from Google, but it's quite a nice way of not having to, we've usually had to app script this or automate it in some way. Now you've got a nice, easy drag and drop wizard ultimately for that. Okay, so you can view trigger history, which means you'll be able to see how many times it's fired in the past and what kind of things it did and when. So if somebody lost an email and you needed to go back for whatever reason, then you can do. Okay, perfect. Right, document approvals. It's going to be the big one. You now have the ability to request another user or number of users approve a particular file, such as a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, for instance. So what you can do is you can lock the file once it's ready for approval so that no other edits can be made. So all I've got here is just a made up letter, basically, in a Google Doc that I want to use for an approval. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Approvals, and we've got a Make a Request option here on the right-hand side. Now you add the approvers up here at the top. The autocomplete's just going to try and give me some regular accounts that I use. You can add a number of approvers. It is only possible to request an approval from a Google account. Okay, document approvals requires a Google account because it requires all the verification of logging it and tracking it for that formality aspect of it. Pop a message in if you want. If the person doesn't know what's happening, you can add some due dates in. You can allow them, if you want the approvers to be able to edit the file, make some tweaks. Otherwise, you can lock it to basically, as I say, it stops them from being able to edit it while you're waiting for approval. Now, a quick note I've got here. Anyone who has edit access to the file is actually able to unlock it, okay? And if a file is unlocked during the approval, any kind of recorded approvals get reset. So it kind of resets everything. If somebody messes with it during the actual process, it doesn't matter after the fact, but you've got to consider, is it ready and are you wanting to lock it and prevent people from tinkering with it at this point? This is going to be one of those features you're going to want to find a colleague and have a little bit of a tinker with. But we've also got some useful resources to support with it. Once a document has been approved, you can unlock it and it won't reset any of the approvals that have already been made. It keeps a history of them, basically. Okay, so I'm going to click on Send Request there. This one will prompt you if said person does not have access to the actual file. So in this instance, it detected that account doesn't have access. Because we don't want to go down the route of giving them editor and messing with the file and the approval process, I'm going to leave it as commenter to protect that element of it. So they can't mess with what's happening here. So you get a few things going on. We get a banner along the top, which tells us that this document's ready in approval. We get this new side panel as well here that we have pending requests from this account to that one as well. Now let's see if the emails come through. Perfect. So the account gets a request like so. Say that there's a new approval request, a link to the file, which they've been given access to. We get the banner along the top. So they have the ability to look at, there's not going to be no details in there at the moment, but if there were other requesters happening or things going through various stages, they could view that. But just for demo purposes, we're going to click straight onto approve here. And on the sidebar, they get to write a message if they want to, any comments or anything that they've had. But if we click approve, the file is now locked. It's gone through the end of that process. If we reload it, as it's prompting us to do, notice we've lost all the toolbar options now to be able to edit it and tinker with it and do anything with it. We're still the end user here who's asked to approve it. I can go into view details on the right-hand side, and we can look at a little bit of the history about what's gone on and see that happening there. If I go back to that person's emails, you then also get a completion email and kind of another link to the document there as well for that. Okay, if I just jump back to my other account, reload that. So again, we've got all locked down, you can see the details. So I'm the person who created the document here. So I'm an editor. If I go to File, I can naturally have the unlock option there to be able to bring this file out again. The end user doesn't because they were a commenter, but all editors will be able to do this. What does it look like in Google Drive? If I just refresh there, we get the little padlock icon now as well. So you're going to start to see that if you use document approvals. The disclaimer I'm going to give here is this is just a bolt-on to the Google Workspace environment. I mean, it's not going to be proper document approval tools and systems that are out there, but at a basic level, it might achieve something that you're needing to do with a few maybe internally formalized documents in that respect. Okay, eSignatures, electronic signatures. So this is a way of signing a Google Doc in Google Drive for signature requests. So what we've usually done at this point is just kind of said to you, ask the other person to write their name in the document somewhere, and you can always use version history and check that they're in a Google account. Well, now you've got something a little bit more formal to be able to use. Again, the disclaimer here is this is not going to be as good as formal other systems like DocuSign, etc. That's job is to do document signing, but at a basic level, it might achieve something that you want to be able to have. So in my document, I've got again a made-up letter. I'm going to put my cursor somewhere where I want to insert a signature, and I'm going to go to Insert, eSignature field. We've got a few fields we can enter here: name, date signed, initials, etc. What we've got here, the drop down at the top, is who you are inserting these fields for, because you can have multiple signers or signees, people signing it off. If we click the drop down here, I can manage those people and give them a little bit more of a meaningful name rather than signer 1, signer 2, for instance, if I know who it's going out to. So I'm going to use my other test account here that I've just got called Ned. I can add multiple people if I want to, up to 10. Click Save. So now I can see that everything I'm inserting for them at this point in time is for that particular account. So I can type signature and it inserts a field there. What I mean is if you add another signer, you can change the drop down, insert another field, and it'll kind of be a different color. It'll be specific for that person of that account to fill in. Okay. Let's also just put name in there as well, like so. So we've got through these fields here. You've got a blue request button down here at the bottom. A quick note, when I had my zoom level quite high, so I zoomed in quite a lot, I couldn't see the button and there wasn't a scroll down option here. So just be aware of how much you're zoomed into your browser in terms of being able to see that. So request eSignatures, it gives them the name of the document, date and timestamp. This will be locked. The name of the document will be locked when it's gone for signing. So be aware of what you want to call it at that point. I'm going to add my test account into there. I don't need any messages. I'm going to change the language to English. I haven't yet found a way to have it to United Kingdom rather than American. So request signature. What it does now then is it generates a PDF version of that document. Which looks like this. So we've got signature pending, a lot of stuff that's the same as document approvals before. Scroll down and we've got those fields there. A quick note, it puts this PDF into your My Drive. So while I was working nicely in a folder here, it hasn't put the PDF in the same place. So you might decide to use the 3-dot options, organize, and just pop it into the folder that you were working in, just to keep things tidy in that respect. Okay, if I switch to that other account, hopefully you've done enough talking to get the email come through. Perfect. So we get an e-signature request. We get the ability to open that item. And now these fields are available for me to type in. So just do Ned in there like so. And I filled in all the information, it populates there. So it's letting me click and use those items there. And I can mark it as complete if I'm happy for it to be done. Bit of terms and service in terms of Google and people being able to view your signature. Obviously, only those who have access to the document itself. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's telling me what I'll do is I will receive a signed copy of the document once it's gone through. If I just see if the email comes through quickly, otherwise I'll jump back to the other file. If I refresh this, I can see the signature's been complete. It always takes an extra moment for the fields to appear, particularly in a live demo, but you've got the history there. If I just close it and reopen it. There we go. Okay, so we can see the signed versions that have come through there. And eventually, there we go, the person who signed it as well gets a confirmation email and a copy of that PDF to be able to have for their records as well. Okay. A big positive about this is it works with non-Google accounts. Okay, so use it for people outside of the university who don't have Google. They can access it perfectly fine.